A few weeks after I'd completed my interviews with Harpuya and Louis Brodska, I was able to get in touch with Kothi and Riley Hogg, two musicians that had created songs inspired by Life is Strange. Luckily for me, they lived within an 8-hour driving distance from me and only about a half-hour apart from each other. We set out Friday morning, right after work traffic ended, and drove most of the day.
So it is 6:54. We're finally on the road heading down I-77. You got any thoughts, any excitement?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. Looking forward to meeting Riley and Kothi. I'm a little bit nervous because I still need to get my questions in order and kind of sort through how I want the interview to go and how we can look into the way they go about creating music. The night before I met Kothi, I spent time going over questions for the next day. Saturday morning, we drove to go meet Kothi. He lives in a small, quiet neighborhood.
Hey, man. Hey, how you doing? Okay. This is Trip. He's excitable but friendly.
After meeting Kothi and Trip, we began setting up the lights and camera in his studio, but I got a little sidetracked.
Put this in your bag. You won't notice.
My name is Kothi. I am an independent musician. I'm 27. I love video games, music, technology, and pretty much all things nerdy and enjoyable for me. Before Life is Strange, from a musical standpoint at least, I was doing a lot of, I guess, quote, popular music. I guess later on I just started doing it more, for me because I wanted to express something that I was feeling at the time. And that's kind of, I think, one of the bigger changes Life is Strange made for me as a person when it came to my music. Originally, I actually started watching episode 1 online as a Let's Play. And as it went on, it kind of took on a different approach than I was expecting. And by the end of episode 1, right around the time that Obstacles by Sid Matter started playing, something just hit me and I realized this game is different. This isn't your typical, story adventure game. Probably towards the tail end of episode 2 was when it started to hit me more on a emotional, intimate level. There's the sequence with, all the drama surrounding Kate Marsh and all of the kind of more, I guess, dark, you would say, elements that you don't usually see in these, at least what starts out as seeming like a very happy, light-hearted video game. There's these kind of mysterious elements surrounding, Rachel Amber, what happened to her, but it doesn't explicitly get dark until towards the end of episode 2. You have little hints of it earlier on, but episode 2's ending is really where, for me, it started to get to the point where I was heavily emotionally invested in these characters, heavily recognizing, starting to relate more to the characters, starting to feel more emotionally connected to them. One thing that I like about the game a lot is that I think there's something that everyone can kind of pull a little bit from every character, whether it's the bitterness you see in characters like Victoria, or the depression you see in Chloe or Kate. Some of that rebellious elements you see in Chloe especially. I think that's something that everyone has something they can pull out of almost every single character, and I think that that's something that creates this living, breathing environment that almost makes the entire cast its own singular entity that reflects you as a person, and you kind of get to pull out which elements you think are the most relevant for you. This game was unquestionably the first game to hit me remotely this hard. Life is Strange really hit me in such a way that it was, I felt like I had to get this out. I had to say certain things. I had to express certain things that I, even at the time, didn't fully understand, and even now still might not. But there was so much going on with, what I was feeling inside after that game that I had to kind of work through, and music was just the way that I chose to do that. I think that from a personal perspective, making music very much is sort of a therapeutic experience for me. It's when I have, a huge amount of, emotions that I'm feeling. There's not always a way you can express that through words, at least not personally. I have a very, hard time expressing certain feelings through words. And so for me, music's kind of a way to get that out, even if I'm not fully understanding it. It always seems like the music understands what it needs to be, and that even if that's just a sound or an emotion within me, that I'm just kind of the means through which that music gets created, that it's has a direction it wants to go, and getting that out is always extremely rewarding feeling. I'm not the one who's selfish. you feel like you've gotten to express this deep emotional yearning almost that you've had, and getting it out there in whatever your form is, whether that's, art or directing a film, cosplay, or in my case, songwriting. I think there's so much that can be done just to get that out. And that's one way that creative people in general tend to deal with emotions, is you almost have, you're compelled, you have to create when you have those feelings. The first few songs I wrote were immediately after I finished my first playthrough. I went and did a full second playthrough after that and continued writing, and then I've kind of gone back and I'll reinvestigate certain scenes or replay certain scenes to try and see what extra details I can pick up, or just to re-immerse myself in that particular component of the emotional story. I would definitely say that writing Price and getting it out there was kind of the catalyst for getting everything else going. I originally had only ever planned to make a single Life is Strange inspired song, but once I made Price, I kind of said, okay, well, I've explored, the Max and Chloe element, but just from this one specific scene almost. I realized I still had more that I wanted to kind of parse through as far as my own emotions, and I still had kind of a story that I wanted to talk about, and that was the best way for me to do it, was to kind of keep on writing, keep on creating. Depending on which character a song would kind of be influenced by, a loving relationship, for example, saying, it's a situation between Max and Chloe, whereas others of them are kind of more about this sense of helplessness or a sense of depression, or I think that each one has its own different type of impact almost. They're all sort of separate to me in their own way. They each tell a little piece of my interpretation of the Life is Strange story. The type of feedback that I've gotten as far as people personally relating to my music or people personally feeling better after listening to my music has been absolutely amazing to me. It's been completely overwhelming. I tend to read pretty much every single message or comment that people put on my songs, so I'll see those things periodically. People send me private messages and say, X or Y song helped me through this really difficult time. And to me, that's completely amazing. That's something that I almost don't even know quite how to process that. Something I've made has been able to be that positively beneficial or impactful on someone's life. I'm incredibly, thankful that I can do something like that. It means the world to me that people let me know how they're feeling about stuff when it comes to my music.
During Breakfast Sunday, I talked with the other guests and tried to explain what a video game-inspired documentary is all about. I don't think Cliff shared my enthusiasm. I finished my coffee and headed out to meet Riley Hall. Listening to Obstacles now gets me in the mood because I'm going to interview Riley, so it gets me back on us talking about the game and the music and on track. So thank you, Pandora, for showing me a little love.
I'm Riley Hawk, and I'm a professional software engineer, but what I'm really passionate about is art, and especially lately I've been pursuing music and playing a lot of guitar, writing a lot of songs, and I think probably the last game I remember playing before Life is Strange was maybe Dragon Age. I can't even remember if it was Inquisition or one of the earlier ones or something, but like my wife and I really like to play video games together and watch TV shows and stuff. I think probably Life is Strange is now one of my favorite games. I think before that I would have said like The Last of Us. That was another one that I really liked. Something that was kind of interesting is I had just gotten back into music right before I played Life is Strange, so it was kind of serendipitous because I had taken quite a bit of time off. It was really cool that I was able to kind of create a song. That's what I felt like doing, after I played Life is Strange. I think that the trailer is what got me into it. I think I've said this before, but I started shipping Pricefield as soon as I saw that trailer, and that's why I played the game. I thought it would be an interesting story about these two girls, and I was curious to see what their relationship would be. I love story-based games in general. I really love the narrative. I think is usually my favorite part of any game, and it looked like a really interesting narrative, so that's what got me into it. Gosh, I think the first time the game hit me, I might be wrong about this, but the thing that stuck out to me the most was right after, or right at the end, I think it was episode 3, when Max goes, and sees Chloe in that wheelchair, and I was like, this game is serious business, because I think the game gets very dark, but it takes a little while to get there, and you kind of, it's because it starts off so light, you think it's this, kind of whimsical story about these, this teenager, she's got some crazy powers or something happening, and it starts to get really dark, and I was like, this game is something else, So I think that was probably the first moment that it hit me quite that hard. The game as a whole, especially as it was progressing, got more and more emotional, and you kind of get more and more involved and figuring out how's it gonna end, and more attached to the characters. But I think it was really the ending of the game that that's what was the toughest for me to deal with. And obviously the ending is built on the entire game, so it's not just that ending, but that final choice. What I chose originally was to sacrifice Chloe and save Arcadia Bay. And I think that when I did that, I didn't really think of it as a choice at the time. It felt like it was inevitable. It felt like that was just the right thing to do, and that it was so tough. And I didn't actually realize how tough it was until days started to go by, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I felt horrible, and it was this character in a game, So that's what sparked me to wanting to create something out of it, because when I have really difficult emotions that I'm dealing with, art is the thing that helps me the most to just kind of process them and get them out into the world and stuff. And so, that's what really did it. And I think I even read somewhere that music kind of helps you deal with those sort of conflicts, even just listening to it. So for me, kind of creating it and being able to dig in there and figure out, what is the really central conflict here, what is the feeling, what is this thing, try to find the most raw aspects of it and kind of just express it in music, and it helps me to move on from that kind of stuff, otherwise I'll just spin. I mean, that's like the big goal for me, really, is being able to help other people feel their feelings, because I don't think that everyone spends as much time thinking about their feelings and stuff as I do, but that everybody has feelings that they need to process, and so if I can create something that just kind of like gets in there and pulls some of those feelings out, that's huge. Like that feels incredible. I've always been really intrigued by cosplay. I haven't done it a lot, but it seems really fun, and I can't remember exactly where I got the idea to do Chloe's bedroom, but once I did, it wouldn't leave my head. I'm like, okay, we can totally recreate this in the living room. And I paid really close attention to like what Chloe's room looked like. I knew it wasn't going to be exact, so we tried to kind of approximate things as much as possible. Just like went to Goodwill, found like shoes and a black shirt like Chloe had, and we bought some like sheets that were approximately the right color. I found like a Maxim at Goodwill that I cut some like raunchy pictures out of, because Chloe had all that stuff all over her walls and everything. I bought a wall safe like magic marker. I guess some kids like to write on walls, so parents will buy those. So we bought some of those, and I wrote a little bit on the wall. I did like the height chart on the one side of the room. I just I tried to kind of emulate her handwriting a little bit. I tried to get as many details in there as I could. And it was a lot of fun. It was some work, but it was also fun because it was like our living room at the time, so it was kind of fun that we could like hang out in Chloe's bedroom and watch TV or something during the time that it was set up. It's been a while since I played it. I played it for the first time over a year ago. Life is Strange, it feels like something that's like a chapter that's kind of over, I guess I would say. I definitely look back fondly on the game. I kind of look forward to maybe playing it again sometime in the future once like it's really faded.
Connect these dots. Kiss me if I dare you to or not.
Next time, Finding Arcadia Bay.
Didn't want to show this to anyone, but at the same time, because this is a master class where there are students, you wanted them to understand.
I'm recording.
Okay. I'm going to keep ad-libbing this until I get it